A Fox 45 News exclusive interview.
Do you think that the current laws are hindering accountability when it comes to probation for young people?
Absolutely.
The changes two of Maryland's top prosecutors say needs to happen now.
They stalked, they robbed, and they executed my daughter.
Grieving parents still angry after their daughter's killer is sentenced.
We didn't get justice. They put us through 4.5 years of hell.
How they say DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi clouded the outcome.
The fight has just begun.
New education reports raising concerns statewide. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore looks at the 3 counties seeing the biggest drop in performance. Some Baltimore County residents want to put the brakes on bike lanes on York Road. Why they're worried it would be a bad deal for drivers and bikers alike.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Tell me about why the state's attorneys from 2 of the largest jurisdictions in the state are teaming up to talk about legislative priorities ahead of January. Mr. Bates?
Well, you know, we have many of the same problems, the same issues.
You know, we have the most at stake in this upcoming session.
In an exclusive interview with Fox 45 News, 2 of Maryland's top prosecutors are saying enough is enough when it comes to juvenile crime.
They say the problem is impacting every corner of the state, and Marylanders can't wait for change. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Those prosecutors not alone in their calls for change tonight.
We're also hearing from one grieving family who call Maryland's handling of the juvenile crime crisis a slap in the face.
When something happens, the law's not there to protect the victim and the family. It's there to continue to allow the criminal to repeat, and hurt the victims and the families.
Tonight, we have team coverage on renewed demands for change.
We begin with Mackenzie Frost's sit down with state's attorneys Ivan Bates and Aisha Braveboy in a story you're seeing first on Fox.
With less than 1 month until lawmakers return to Annapolis for the 90-day session, state's attorneys Ivan Bates and Aisha Braveboy from Baltimore City and Prince George's County coming together with one goal.
And we've had the opportunity to really talk, to share, and to say, what could we do united to, hopefully fix the problems that we're suffering together?
We look like the majority of the people who we prosecute, and we also look like the majority of the victims in our respective jurisdictions.
Juvenile crime continues to climb. Young people caught on surveillance video, sometimes in the midst of the criminal act. But right now, legislative action remains in limbo. Prosecutors like these 2 have been vocal about making changes, specifically to the Juvenile Interrogation Act and the Juvenile Justice Reform Act. Laws police, parents, and prosecutors have argued prevent them from securing justice and accountability.
The ultimate goal is not to lock everyone up forever. The ultimate goal is rehabilitation. But how can you have rehabilitation without accountability? And that's what we're looking for.
One proposal from these 2, increasing the probation for kids who have a gun and for stealing a car. Do you think that the current laws are hindering accountability when it comes to probation for young people?
Absolutely.
Why do you think extending the length of probation will impact juvenile crime?
Well, because it keeps people, make sure they're held accountable.
Braveboy also argues with longer probation periods, it gives the young person more time to complete a program, which right now, she says, isn't always happening.
That's a problem, and that's a very real problem because there's not enough resources available through the Department of Juvenile Services. I think really just being able to have honest dialogue, because we all want the children to succeed.
You said there needs to be an honest dialogue. Is that not happening?
It's not an open dialogue. We don't know in real time when children are violating the terms of their probation.
And that's why these state's attorneys also want the Department of Juvenile Services to immediately notify the courts when a young person on home monitoring violates.
And once they've been violated, then we'd like to have the judge, the judicial magistrate, make the determination whether to bring them in and talk to them, or if they violate and the court feels that, hey, we must detain them to get their attention, that's the court's prerogative.
There have been several examples just this year of a young person already wearing an ankle monitor finding themselves involved in another crime. 2 suspects arrested in connection to Baltimore's Brooklyn Day mass shooting in July on home monitoring. Right now, an attorney must approve law enforcement's questioning of a juvenile, even if a parent gives the okay. Bates says he wants to change that, requiring an attorney to be present during the questioning.
The attorney who's physically there will listen to the information, listen to the evidence, and will have the dialogue with the child and the child's parents to do what's going to be best for that child.
I think this really does put parents in a stronger position to make decisions on behalf of their children.
Bates acknowledging altering the law preventing kids 13 and younger from facing nonviolent misdemeanor charges likely won't happen this year, but he still wants changes surrounding how involved state's attorneys are in the decisions.
Right now, if it deals with a misdemeanor, where can transport a handgun or a car theft matter, or even a second-degree assault that could be, part of a robbery or something, those cases automatically go to DJS. We want to change that. We're not involved in the very beginning having that conversation dialogue with the police, therefore we can't prove the case.
Everyone, please take your seats.
Despite 3 hearings in a House committee looking at juvenile justice laws, Democrats in charge have yet to roll out a specific plan to address the concerns. Without support from at least some Democrats and the governor, it's not likely any proposal would find success in Annapolis.
Do you think there'll be support and appetite to make these changes in the General Assembly?
I think so. I think that a lot of the topics that we're hitting on are near and dear to many of our legislators, and they should be, because they're near and dear to our constituents.
At the end of the day, we serve the people, and this isn't just what we want. This is what the people have told us they want.
Now it'll be up to lawmakers to decide the path forward for these plans. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
The legislative priorities from Bates and Braveboy include proposals to change the state's organized crime laws to hold more people accountable, and their proposals to repeal a sentence modification cap and to ensure victims get compensated quicker. You can read more about the proposed legislation in this story on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Bates and Braveboy, just 2 of more than a dozen top prosecutors across Maryland calling for changes to the juvenile justice system. They say current laws leave their hands tied and allow young people to act without fear of consequences.
Some of our laws that have been passed recently do make it a little more challenging for us to hold them accountable, and that's sort of playing a role in some of the issues we're seeing at the moment.
We can only hope that they'll not listen to just folks like me or my 23 colleagues across the state or the chief prosecutors in our counties, but hopefully they'll listen to their citizens, because their citizens are saying the exact same thing. Enough's enough.
Fox 45 News has heard from frustrated residents across the state who say juvenile crime continues to impact their lives. Communities from Federal Hill to Woodlawn have held meetings to address the issue.
They catch these kids, and then 2 hours later they're released. And there must be some sort of systemic reason for that just isn't right.
If you do a crime, you've killed someone, you've stolen a car, you're committing theft repeatedly, I don't understand why there should not be a response.
Well, other residents are appealing to their lawmakers. The Brewers Hill community is calling on Delegate Luke Clippinger to examine the state's laws amid an uptick in juvenile crime in that neighborhood.
We've had an assault that's actually taken place right up along Fagley Street. We had some individuals that stole some vehicles, and we've had vehicles broken into. But we normally don't have those type of activities here in the neighborhood.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor will have more on their demands coming up at 10:30.
Now, one Harford County family speaking out 4 years after they say a teenager killed their daughter. They say the state needs to change the way it handles young criminals before other parents wind up grieving. Fox 45's Vincent Hill has their message.
Although the current juvenile laws were not in effect in 2019 when Brittany was killed, the Fosters are hoping changes will come so other parents won't feel their pain.
It's very painful. It really is. It's just painful.
Rob and Helena Foster holding on to the happy images.
There she is in brownie. Look at that. Let's see.
Of their daughter, Brittany.
I've got tons of pictures. Isn't that beautiful of her?
Because the last images they have is her casket being lowered into the ground.
That's my baby. It was an honor to be her father. And shouldn't have been cut short like it was.
Brittany and her friend Julian Rosalie were killed in July of 2019 after being robbed in Baltimore City.
Why? Why did he have to do it? They had her pocketbook.
According to charging documents, the two suspects can be seen in this alley, captured on this camera. A few minutes later, you can see the suspects following the victims on this camera. And that same camera captured the two victims being shot execution style right here. The shooter at the time, then 17-year-old Charles Anderson, charged as an adult.
Little sweet thing.
Then he walked over to my daughter, who was on her knees crying, and executed her, putting bullets in her head. That's what happened.
But that wasn't Anderson's first violent crime.
When he was 17 years old, he committed a crime when he was 16, but then he was arrested for armed robbery, assault, gun charges when he was 17. And then a couple days later, the judge, Judge Bloomquist, let him out on a $100,000 unsecured bond without any conditions, because 6 months later, he robbed and murdered my daughter.
At Anderson's sentencing this past Friday, his attorney claimed at the time of the murder, his client didn't know what he was doing because of his age. Rob, when you heard what the attorney said, tell me how that made you feel.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because I was wondering what was going to be their defense. And all it was is talking points from Annapolis.
He's referring to DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi, who says a person should not be exposed to the prison system before the age of 25.
And he had brought up about, well, Your Honor, they're finding now that when that you're not, that your brain is not fully developed until you're 25 years old.
Although Brittany's murder happened before the state's current juvenile crime laws took effect, these parents say they're opening the door for crimes like this to happen more often. They say they want to close the book on the current juvenile crime laws.
We have to find a way, all of us, to work together to reform these laws, because if we don't, what we're seeing now, it's out of control.
Before more parents end up grieving.
It's just sad that I'll never see her again until I die.
Anderson's co-defendant was sentenced last year for his part in the robbery. Now inside that courtroom was his now 14-year-old brother, as the judge handed down a 40-year sentence. That 14-year-old charged with armed carjacking 2 weeks ago. In the control room, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. Well, DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi will be a panelist at a Senate President Bill Ferguson's town hall next Monday, aimed at addressing juvenile crime and public safety concerns in Baltimore. But as Vincent just mentioned, Schiraldi has some controversial views on juvenile justice. And while the governor has called the DJS Secretary a reformer, others say his views are making Maryland less safe.
You're basically saying up until the age of 25, which is what he wants to do, you get a free ride.
Unfortunately, legislators, lawmakers, have decided that it's better to support the lawbreakers rather than those who are enforcing the law.
DJS is also facing questions about how it keeps track of the children in its system. A Fox 45 investigation revealed the department has 14 staff members to look after more than 100 kids. That is nearly a 1-to-9 ratio. And many of the children not at a DJS facility are under home monitoring. But prosecutors tell Fox 45 News that penalties for breaking home monitoring start with a discussion with the child. Mackenzie was talking about this, rarely involving a judge. Former prosecutor Roy Hanna says that's not enough of a deterrent.
The child knows they can go out, they can do whatever they want, behave any kind of way, and maybe they'll get a stern talking to for 10 or 15 minutes. That's not going to teach them anything.
House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you feel your juvenile crime concerns are not being heard, contact them. We have their phone numbers, email addresses right there on your screen.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust Bill Ferguson and Adrian Jones to protect your family? 99% of those who voted say no. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Fox 45 News is hosting our town hall on public safety next week. We invite you to join us. City Councilman Eric Costello and mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon will be on the panel. It takes place Wednesday, December 20th at 7 p.m. at Leadenhall Baptist Church.
The impeachment process against President Joe Biden is set to begin after the House authorized an impeachment inquiry today. The vote came just hours after Hunter Biden spoke outside the Capitol, slamming Republicans investigating his foreign business dealings. The impeachment inquiry stems from that investigation. Republicans say the president played a role in his son's business overseas. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden says he's willing to testify before Congress, but only in public, thus defying a subpoena from House Republicans for a deposition behind closed doors. Stay with Fox 45 News. We'll have complete report on what Hunter Biden said in D.C. today and the impeachment inquiry coming up at 10:30.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, a battle is brewing over bike lanes in Baltimore County. Why some residents are sounding the alarm over potential new additions to York Road. Fox 45 News is learning more about a second Safe Streets worker at the center of an FBI search. We press the mayor for answers as we learn more about another worker with alleged gang ties.
After a stretch of dry days, we're getting ready for the next weather maker. I'll break down the timing of rain and how it could impact your weekend plans coming up.
The latest Maryland school report card shows bad grades for 3 of the state's highest performing school systems. Project Baltimore has the numbers parents need to know.
The latest Maryland school report card is out, and the news is not good for 3 of the highest performing school systems in our area.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, Howard County and Anne Arundel County schools saw steep declines this year in school performance.
The Maryland Report Card is an online tool the public can use to see how every school in the state is performing. Parents can go to this website, type in their school's name, and see the data for that school, including test scores, attendance, and graduation rates. Now, based off of those metrics and more, the state awards a star rating to every school, from a low of 1 star to a high of 5. And the state just released the star ratings for this year.
Let's start at the top with the best schools. There's roughly 1,300 public schools in the state that are rated. Last year, 215 schools throughout Maryland earned 5 stars, which is the highest rating. This year, Just 85 schools earned 5 stars. Baltimore City was the only district in the state to see the number of 5-star schools increase. It went from 1 to 2. Baltimore Polytechnic Institute and the School for the Arts.
We're clearly really proud of those 2 schools, but we also were looking because we had a number of schools that were on the cusp. But it's a proud moment. It's a proud moment for those school communities and a proud moment for the city, but also knowing that we really have a number of schools now that are 4-star that are looking to be 5-star next year.
All other districts in our area saw a drop in the number of 5-star schools this year. Baltimore County has the most in our region with 19 5-star schools. But look at this. Last year, Carroll County had 12 5-star schools. This year, it's down to 1. Howard County had 28 5-star schools. This year, Howard County is down to 12. Anne Arundel County saw an even bigger drop. Last year, Anne Arundel County also had 28 5-star schools. And this year, it's down to just 9. The Maryland State Department of Education said the decline in overall scores this year could be connected to chronic absenteeism. Due to the pandemic, chronic absenteeism was scored differently last year. But this year, the rating system returned to the pre-pandemic normal. And chronic absenteeism rates across the state are high, around 25%.
I think what we're seeing is disconnection between school and youth and families that occurred during the pandemic.
In Baltimore City, 58% of students are chronically absent.
What it's made us do is double down on our outreach, so we've invested more in our outreach to families, to finding young people.
While chronic absenteeism seemed to have significant
what we're going to get in terms of response.
Fiery testimony in Baltimore County at last night's council hearing. The council is talking about amendments that could limit the Inspector General's power as part of a new bill. Baltimore City Inspector General Isabel Cumming joined us on Fox 45 News at 5 after speaking last night, saying the move is a slap in the face to county residents. Cumming is also vice president of the National Association of Inspectors General.
I mean, the public spent $100,000 getting that blue ribbon commission of judges, expert people on this, as well as interviewing people from all of the United States to come up with 100-page recommendations, of which Council Chairman Jones has completely ignored. I mean, this was actually a bizarre experience.
Council Chair Jones says the Inspector General's advisory board should have checks and balances and should contain at least one county official. Inspectors General pushed back on that, saying it creates a conflict of interest between the IG and the people they are supposed to be investigating.
Tomorrow, the Maryland Public Service Commission is set to vote on BGE's conduit deal with Baltimore City. It would raise residents' utility rates by 5% each year over the next 3 years. Councilmember Zeke Cohen and Antonio Glover are urging the PSC to vote no.
The multi-year rate plan, if approved, is a blank check from ratepayers to BGE to wreck our planet.
BGE wants to raise the rate increase on the very same people that helps makes Baltimore thrive.
BGE says a recently released memo claims customers will benefit from the deal, but the memo didn't provide any cost analysis and was only released to the public after a ruling from the PSC. The full 11-page memo is available at foxbaltimore.com. We'll also follow tomorrow's vote and bring you updates on air and online. Brewers Hill residents call on lawmakers to address a hotbed of juvenile crime in their neighborhood. Coming up at 10:30, their demands to Annapolis.
I'm Kayla Gaskins on Capitol Hill. Coming up, Republican lawmakers react to Hunter Biden skipping out on his subpoena.
We are following three big stories at 10:30. The clock is ticking on a new lease for the Orioles at Camden Yards as Governor Moore promises an imminent deal, but fans and city leaders sharing some skepticism about those comments.
Residents in Brewers Hill take juvenile crime demands directly to state lawmakers. Why they say change in Annapolis can't wait.
And concerns over a bike lane proposal in Baltimore County designed to cut into an already congested area.
We begin there. Some residents welcome the accessibility for cyclists, while others hope the wheels fall off this plan before it gets off the ground.
Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live with the proposal and the pushback tonight. Jeff?
Well, right now there are some 22 miles of bike lanes in Baltimore County, but if planners get their way, portions of York Road and Timonium Road will become part of 70 new miles of dedicated bike lane space.
This is a really busy road.
On Stevenson Lane in Baltimore County,
It's hard to even have a conversation.
residents question whether this busy road is a safe road for bikes.
As a resident, I just don't know how much use actual bikers would get out of them.
But this road and dozens of other county roads are prioritized in Baltimore County's first ever master plan for bicycles and pedestrians. The plan calls for 70 miles of new on-road bike lanes and recommends the county quadruple its spending on bike lanes to ensure a safe path for both bicyclists and motorists. Even though county officials admitted at a planning hearing last month that the number of bicyclists who rely on bikes for transportation in the county is few.
It's only about 2% of the population, but the people that use it for recreation is more in the 30 to 40% range.
The proposed master plan calls for bike lanes to eventually be built along this busy stretch of Timonium Road.
Would you ride a bike on this road?
Nah, I won't even let my kids ride a bike.
The county's proposed plan comes as Baltimore City steps up construction of its new bike lanes and faces growing criticism for reducing vehicular lanes to accommodate bike lanes, where in many communities there are no bikers.
They're creating traffic jams.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
There is no evidence whatsoever that this serves the public good.
We have to find a way so that everyone can use the road equally.
In Baltimore County, officials are vowing to produce a more balanced remedy for both bikes and vehicles.
The county is not going to put the bicyclists in any sort of danger, or motorists in danger for that matter, by shrinking roads that shouldn't be shrunk down.
Still, some county residents question whether the cost of bike lanes will justify the use.
I think you need to get the data first from the bikers and say, are you using these roads? You know, is this the route you would even take?
The county's planning commission is slated to vote on this master plan next month. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
New details in Fox 45's investigation into the Safe Streets program more than a month after the FBI executed search warrants on the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets location and employee homes. We are learning the name of that second employee who had federal agents show up at his home. Fox 45 confirmed his name is Lamont Crooks. Lifebridge confirming he no longer works for Safe Streets, although they say his departure is not related to the current investigation. We first told you about Crooks yesterday. Public records we obtained show he was involved in the 2010 federal investigation when investigators called him the BGF supply for heroin. BGF is a gang known as the Black Guerrilla Family. Now, according to Lifebridge, the FBI went to Mr. Crooks' home to retrieve property that was the subject of the original search warrant. The property was returned to Lifebridge Health within 2 business days. Lifebridge says when it took over the location last year, it believed all employees had been screened and vetted already. Living Classrooms managed the site before Lifebridge. We sent questions asking them about Crooks, but we have not heard back. Today, we pressed Mayor Scott about how somebody with gang affiliation could be hired to work for Safe Streets.
How does possible or confirmed gang affiliation factor into the screening process when employees are being screened for hiring?
Well, thank you for the question, Mackenzie. I won't go into details about the current case for obvious reasons, but what I will say is that working with our partners, working with law enforcement, there is a process for screening, and that process is going to consistently be updated as it has been over time.
So does gang affiliation factor into that screening process?
There's a screening process with law enforcement that considers whether someone should be hired or not.
Well, Fox 45 also asked the mayor if there are any other current Safe Streets workers with gang ties. The mayor telling us his administration is not aware of any. Now, Fox 45 News followed up with the mayor asking if hiring Mr. Crooks was a mistake. The mayor's office responded saying Crooks was hired before his administration took over, and they take any allegation of wrongdoing very seriously.
This isn't the first time Fox 45 News has found Safe Streets workers accused and convicted of crimes. Ronald Alexander was convicted of distributing drugs in communities where he was tasked with protecting. In the Brooklyn office last year, Vernon Harper was federally indicted for possessing fentanyl with intent to distribute. Safe Streets worker Ronald Brady was accused of killing a person in September of 2019. That case went to trial in 2022, but ended in a hung jury. He was ultimately acquitted. Now, Scroggins' family is highly critical of Safe Streets.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Fox 45 News will continue to follow the Safe Streets program and demand answers about the FBI investigation and how the program screens employees. You can follow on air and online.
We are continuing to follow calls for change to the state's juvenile justice laws as one Baltimore community is taking its crime concerns directly to lawmakers. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor shares the demands in Brewers Hill.
Keeping a watchful eye from up above, the historic Mr. Bow sign, a renowned landmark overlooking Baltimore's Brewers Hill neighborhood.
Safety is a concern. I think for everyone, it's a concern for me and my family.
As some of the residents down below.
It's been challenging over the last year because a lot of people just don't have that comfort level.
Now urging lawmakers to take a closer look at an uptick in juvenile crime in their community.
We've had an assault that's actually taken place right up along Fagley Street.
Just around these few blocks alone.
We had some individuals that stole some vehicles, and we've had vehicles broken into.
Brewers Hill Neighbor Association President Brent Fisher.
We normally don't have those type of activities here in the neighborhood.
Claiming young offenders are putting residents on edge and at risk. In a letter sent to Delegate Luke Clippinger, the association writing, quote, "We are deeply troubled by the surge in juvenile crime, specifically an increase in homicides, non-fatal shootings, armed carjackings, and car thefts within our district and across Baltimore." The letter going on to demand tangible changes to the juvenile justice system, including the charging process for juveniles, amendments to probation periods for cases involving illegal firearms and felony offenses, revisions around competency commitments, increased transparency around the juvenile home monitoring system, and changes to restrictions on police interrogations of juveniles.
We want to have that accountability piece.
Echoing calls and concerns also being shared by police and prosecutors.
There's nothing the law will allow us to do to hold them accountable. And they're doing whatever they want.
They come in, we can't detain them, they're back in the community the next day.
The hope with this letter and just having these conversations that when the next session in January that, they can find viable solutions to right the ship and get the proper laws in place.
New laws that could have been worked out this summer during a special session. Instead, Governor Westmore refusing to call for one, waiting until next year to look into new legislation. Rebecca Breyer, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fisher and Delegate Clippinger plan to sit down for a meeting in the coming weeks. Clippinger tells Fox 45 News the legislation surrounding juvenile crime is still being drafted in Annapolis.
Baltimore is on pace to finish the year under 300 homicides for the first time since 2014. U.S. Attorney Eric Barron touts his collaboration with City State's Attorney Ivan Bates as a driving force behind the decline. Since they unveiled their partnership in July, homicides are down 9% and non-fatal shootings are down 20%.
Our strategy has been focused. It's been aggressive. We're all on the same page. We meet regularly, formally and informally. We're communicating seamlessly. We're all working together up and down the line, all across the chain, from local, state, federal law enforcement agencies. And so when you do that, you're going to succeed. So, it starts with accountability.
Barron says he looks forward to continuing his work with Ivan Bates and the mayor's office.
House Republicans have passed a resolution for a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden surrounding potential involvement in his son Hunter's business dealings. Well, Hunter Biden defends his father in front of the U.S. Capitol this morning, but didn't comply with Republicans' request to testify behind closed doors. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
Good morning.
In a moment of defiance, the president's son, Hunter Biden, giving a rare public statement outside the Capitol instead of complying with a subpoena issued by House Republicans.
There is no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing.
The president's son? His subpoena connected to the party's investigation into the Biden family's business deals.
This is an investigation about public corruption at the highest level.
Amid allegations, the Bidens sold access to Joe Biden to foreign business associates while he served as VP and after he left office, but not during his presidency.
My father was not financially involved in my business.
He said that his dad wasn't involved financially in his businesses. He didn't say he wasn't involved.
Republicans requested a closed-door deposition. Hunter Biden says he'll only testify at a public hearing. What do you get in a closed-door deposition that you would not get in an open hearing, which is what Hunter's asking for?
Hunter can plead the fifth in an open hearing. In a deposition, we actually get asked the questions. We already had our questions in front of us this morning. We were ready to go.
Meanwhile, Republicans want an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden, which will give them the resources and legal power they say they need to get answers.
It's the next logical step.
The White House calling it a fishing expedition. Republicans say they still plan to get Hunter Biden in a closed-door deposition. They argue passing an impeachment inquiry would help them do that. That power could come in handy, considering Hunter Biden, the president's brother James Biden, and family business associate Rob Walker have all dodged their congressional subpoenas for now. While Democrats say Republicans have no evidence to support impeaching the president.
No one has been able to define what criminal or constitutional offense they're looking for.
Some Republicans are confident there's enough smoke to find a fire. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
That brings us to our national question of the day. Do you think an impeachment inquiry into President Biden is justified? 86% of those who voted say yes. You can weigh in by heading to foxbaltimore.com/vote and clicking on the Pulse tab.
Still ahead, Governor Moore calls a new lease deal at Camden Yards imminent, but others aren't so sure. The back and forth as time is running out to reach an agreement.
And the cold continues tonight as temperatures fall to the 20s and the 30s. Then tomorrow, back to the 40s for a cool day. I'll let you know when to expect the next warm up and the chance for rain in my Weather Authority forecast.